What's going on, gamers? Feeling somewhat better since, losing my brother a little bit, Don't really want to make these videos, but, we got to keep the channel going. We built this, got to stay strong and keep going forth. Thank you all for the support. In the last video, I'll try to get up to today, talk about the state of play and all that. But let's get to this. It says Sony's own financial reports show that PlayStation's first-party game sales have fallen significantly since their peak in fiscal year 2020. Now, there's a lot to talk about here because there's a reason for this. Obviously, it's not good. I can tell you straight off the bat, Naughty Dog missing a game is huge. Naughty Dog games usually sell like 15 million, right? 20 million or whatever, or in the first year, even 10 million. If you add that, they're back in 2022. But when they chased all that live service, canceled all those games, yeah, it really hurt them big time because people who were supposed to have games in Windows, like a Days Gone 2, that could have sold 10 million along with Naughty Dog. That just gives you the idea of how good this generation could have actually been since fiscal year 2020. But that year also was an insane peak year for everybody, like Animal Crossing selling insane too. Just in general, there was like a bubble spike that is not realistic. But even then, there's a reason why they're not at that peak now because, games are releasing like Sorrows, Concord, and Marathon are not going to give them the numbers that they want either. And what cancels, no, Ghost of Yote helped because Ghost of Yote actually did really good, but Death Stranding didn't sell like that. And that's not really so much permanently first party. It was an exclusive, and Kojima got the right, so they got stripped away. So yeah, they're in a tough spot. It says first party game sales reached 58.4 million units in 2020 before declining over the following years. While sales rebounded slightly in fiscal year 2025, they remain well below fiscal year 2020 levels. And this is something to talk about because I see what happens when they drop all these games this year and go back exclusive. They're gonna need to really take that up to the next level. Like when you think about a game like Marvel fighting Tokon, Marvel games usually sell good, and Wolverine, along with everything else, continuing with MLB and all that. It's gonna be interesting to see those numbers. Obviously, last year was literally the worst. 2000, not last year, 2024 was actually the worst. 2025 picked up a little bit, and I think 2026 will sell better than that. We're going to see what happens over time, though. So we get the idea, 54.4 million in 2020. By the way, guys, become a member if you want. Leave a tip down below, like and subscribe. I would like it and appreciate that. Thank you for all the support again. Fiscal year 2021, 43.9 million units. This was like when the PS5 launched because PS4 actually ended pretty strong and that carried over to PS5. So there was a nice combination right there. And things were still looking pretty good, right? 2022, not too bad. But after 2023, we're like, okay, things are starting to shake up. And then we know what happened with 2024 and 2025. They were trying to make a turnaround. So we kind of get some ideas and we're going to get some comments. But if you look at this chart right here, we kind of get this is the way that things kind of ended up going down here. And it was a 45% drop from 2020 to fiscal year 2025. Yeah, that's a lot. So it gives you the idea of, like I said, how important it is to have a Naughty Dog game. Remember, Naughty Dog didn't have a game this generation, this next gen. Sony Ben didn't get to do Days Gone 2. That type of stuff matters. We're talking about two games that could have instantly gave you 20 plus million sales in total. Then you would have been at 52 million. You would have been at the highest since 2020. Just two studios. You know how many other cancels happened too? Could you imagine if they did that generation correctly? They could potentially be here. Because Helldivers 2 did very well, right? That helped out. But like outside of that, it's like, yeah, it's really rough. Now, we know Pirate Nation is a page that does the political exploits as well, too. Not exploits, but exposing and all that. And then there's some people that he makes mad. That's always a double-edged sword. It just depends. I think also, like when you say that about games like Ghost of Yote, it's kind of dumb because that game was actually amazing and that did not affect it. But going down here, I expect to see these type of comments. So Rappy says, when people realize Sony's games are crap, so people stop buying them. 2024 got hit hard by Concord. That's pretty funny. I wouldn't say their games are crap, but they made some decisions to have to cancel too many games. And then there's some decisions they should have never made. Obviously, Concord was just no thanks. It was bad. Um, Sarah says, and the solution was to sell on PC 1 year later, after all the excitement died down. IMO, the only way to get sales back up is simultaneously release on PS5, Xbox, and PC. But I don't think that had anything to do with any of that, because if you go back to 2020, that wasn't the case. It was more about the live service goose chase, Naughty Dog missing their game, right? And Sony Ben not being able to do Days Gone 2, which we should have had. And could you imagine if they would have did Destiny 3? So like, see, it's all about choices. And this Sony now is actually away from all that for the most part and turned things around big time. As soon as they got Hideaki Nishino in there and Hiroki Totoki, and find a better balance with Japan. Start focusing on Japan again too, and not letting Jim Ryan run insane with Europe. Like, that was a huge mistake that they made. Wisdom says 2020 was a peak most industries will never see again. And I understand there was a COVID bubble there. Most people were at home and everything rose up, for sure. Treating it as the baseline makes every year after look like a decline. So that's what he has to say. But I can tell you what, in a way he's right, but then in a way Sony still could have reached that if they would have had a Naughty Dog game. And Sony Ben do something nice with 5, 6, 7 million. Even if Naughty Dog sold 12, 13 million and the Days Gone 2 sold 7, look, you're still 20 million higher up on this chart. You're at 52 million. Imagine if the Naughty Dog game was 15 million, 20 million. Dude, we could be getting there. Is that really an excuse because of that? Yeah, part of that is true for the most market. That's why a lot of people got laid off, because they hired with those ridiculous mentalities. It's the same thing with the AI bubble goose chase. Like, this is worse because it's crashing the whole market. And they're up in this high bubble with the AI feed, but it's going to have to come down. Like, it's like, went up like this, but it's going to have to go down, because all of them are not going to be successful like that. There's only going to be a few entities. You know how that system works. So it's going to be just like that. On Richard Homie says, Sony saw the numbers and a lot of gamers are playing live service games. They're interactive, create communities, have never-ending stories with high engagement, than a one-and-done interactive movie. Yeah, I mean, unless you have like a game that's really good like Last of Us, where people can play it over and over again, and you add multiplayer to it. Uncharted had multiplayer. And then add co-op. When you do that, you're okay, but your story better be so good that people want to play it like 30 times. And, some of their games are like that, but some of them, yeah, it's like going through a movie. Once you've seen the movie, it's over. But if it's a really good movie, you can watch the movie over and over again, if it has that. PlayStation took their shot in making their own live service games and are failing. Yeah, only Helldivers did well, and that's not something that you would think is outside the box. Those guys already had Helldivers 1, and I played Helldivers 1 a lot. It was a good game. When Helldivers 2, I don't think people expected that, but it ended up hitting really good. Nexus says, it's too risky to make a single-player game for the PlayStation players. They're not Nintendo, and they'll never have the loyal fan base that would be interested in a family-friendly, lower-budget game. It's blockbuster graphics or bust. The problem with that is that Sony has adapted. Like, Astrobot did really good. It just didn't get the sales. It's another game that if it would have sold more, you still would have been higher on that. But guess what? You see what I'm saying? Like, this just kind of gives you the idea that one thing is, right, they don't have the Nintendo loyal base for first party, but some of their games do hit very well, but they have to be like huge games from Naughty Dog. Ghost ended up doing well. Marvel is just Marvel, but those Spider-Man games are the best Spider-Man games. But yeah, Sony has a hybrid balance with that. Like, Nintendo first party games sell gangbusters. It's not going to be no Sorrows, you know what I mean? Though I think Sorrows is a really good game, but the problem with Sorrows is that those type of games, and I could tell House Marquee and Sony definitely, because they're the one publishing this, is that a game like Returnal, and that it should have been $49.99. Think about this. What if you sold 4 million at $49.99 and made 200 million? But you couldn't even sell 2 million at 70. Though I think over time it could, but you gotta get what I mean. Let's see if you hit 5 million. That's 250 million. You still made more money. That's the problem with selling a game like that at a too high price. No, you need to put the game at least 60. No, but I think Returnal should have been $49.99. So publishing can ruin the sales of a game. That's just what I have to say about that. Lit Gutter says 2020 was massive for many at-home industries. A decline after makes sense. Once again, we were talking about that. Yeah, I agree, but they still could have been fine if they would have made different decisions. Choices have consequences. You would have to look earlier, like starting 2016, to see any long-term trends. Ghost of AI Future says down 45% from peak while the PlayStation 5 install base kept growing means that gamers aren't converting the hardware sales the way they used to. Sony has a content problem that looks like a hardware success story. Well, Sony is a hardware manufacturing company. They've always been good at moving hardware. Go all the way back to the Sony Walkman in the 90s. PlayStation 1, getting the CDs and having people get on that. Having a DVD player for the PS2. Like, they know how to move hardware. They're really good with it. And they have a loyal hardware base, not a loyal first-party base. They're loyal to the brand and to the hardware and to the system, the way that it works. Sony's always been good at that. That's something I can tell you. But yes, this generation, it could have been a golden generation for PlayStation. They could have had it like PS2 in a sense. If I wouldn't say maybe to that degree, but if it wasn't for that hiccup at the end of 2023 and 24. Yeah, I mean, it just makes you realize that, damn, and that's where I say, you messed that up. Nintendo's not going to mess up, though. They're not going to be missing first-party games. They're becoming dropping 24/7. They've been doing it for a long time. They did not slow down on the Switch 1. It was insane. And we see them back again. The only thing that sucks is that this market is the worst that I've ever seen. Like, ever in the history of gaming. Like, I hate this market at the moment. It is just ruining everything. Steam Machine can't even launch properly. Like, I don't like that. I want to see organic competition and organic growth. But we're getting screwed big time because of this AI feed, and it's just not good. Danilo says, because there aren't any, I don't know about that. They haven't had a new game in ages. What do you mean? It doesn't make any sense. Everything is either a rehash of their prior success or a live service flop no one asked for. In a sense, this was going on for a while. And there can be like, everything new is the same again. Like sometimes, yeah, that happens a lot. Jim Ryan really set them up to fail, for sure. But they recovered, though. They would have lost this gen if Xbox wasn't a dumpster fire. I don't think no matter what they did because of that digital carryover, Xbox could have won. But could Xbox have done better and been at like 50 million sales, which I wish they would have? Yeah, depends on choices. And then telling somebody not to buy your hardware and just the choices they made were just absolutely terrible. Putting too many games day one on Game Pass. Because it's like saying you're not confident they're going to sell. Because you don't have the blockbuster, you know what I mean, evergreen going anymore. But your game just keeps selling millions and millions and millions of copies. The Bear says maybe they should stop hiring terrorists to play protagonists in film garbage games nobody wants. Oh, wow. That's funny. I think he's talking about the Antifa stuff. Oh, man, I'm not getting into that. We're talking about video games here. I hate politics, but that's funny because, like, Ghost of Yotei was actually a really good game and it did very well. Now, if we want to talk about games that got ruined because of that, Concord was terrible. The art was ugly. It was a generic blend of everything else, just like High Guard. It's like, what are we doing here? You can actually criticize that type of stuff. But when it comes to a game like Ghost, I'm like, no, it's a really good game. Like, they didn't let that get in there because the developers took control. So it still felt like a true sequel. Did people probably want Jin Sakai to be the his own successor in the next game? Yeah, I can understand that. But Atsu actually had character, but she just had the face. You know what I mean? Other than that, it's like you're not affecting anything in the game, like writing, development, none of that type of stuff. It's actually a really good game. I got the platinum on that and Ghost of Tsushima. I'm just being honest. I'm saying, like, to me, that doesn't really work. It's like Spider-Man 2 is a really good game, but it just depends. So, but the PC gamers are going to be the ones that actually go against this the most. So, Matey says Sony stopped making games players wanted to play. Simple as that. Today's SOP will show if they've learned that lesson or not. Okay, this is actually a good post here because I think that this is where they need to make their imprint in the state of play today, where you have to come with strong exclusives and you know, first party games so that you can show that Sony is going to be hitting at least 40 million in the next fiscal, you know, when we get the results done compared to like this chart, like up here. Because I think that when it comes to even this, Helldivers helped out. So they're going to need something like that. Wolverine, of course. Marvel's going to sell, but I don't know if it's going to do that because GTA 6 is going to eat up everything. We're going to have to wait to see what happens here. But we kind of get the idea here of what's going on here. This is kind of a trend going on as we see first-party game sales. You know, a lot of people are talking about it. It's kind of blowing up. Genki says numerous canceled live service games, studio closures such as Japan Studio, and AAA game dev taking longer than ever has meant PlayStation first party output has really slowed down in recent years. Yeah, there's multiple factors going in here. So I want you guys to let me know what you think about this. Do you think that Sony's going to turn that around? And do you agree with me that if Naughty Dog would have had their game there and Sucker Punch had their game, you'd have the stupid God of War cancel game? We didn't even bring that in. Like, live service shouldn't be doing that. Like, when you think about the mistakes they made, this could have easily been over here in this category. No problem. Even with the peak you're saying that came down, if they would have done everything the correct way. This is the thing. If you're good enough, you still can do it. Naughty Dog still has the talent. There's a big question on Intergalactic that people are worried about. Is it even going to hit 10 million? Are they thinking that? I think so, yeah, because they're just good developers. But we need to see more, and we're going to find out today if it's going to be appearing there and set the world aflame or what's going to happen. Either way, you know there's always going to be a double-edged sword when it comes to politics and games, so get ready for that. But I know Marvel's Wolverine is going to be really good. All right, y'all, let me know what you think. Leave a comment down below. Keep on gaming no matter what platform you're on.